So, what does it really mean to be a manager these days? I mean, is it just about being the boss, calling the shots, keeping an eye on everyone? Or has the job turned into something else entirely? All right, let's dive in and really unpack the craft of modern management.
You might not immediately think of a rock and roll legend when you picture a great manager. But this quote about John Bon Jovi, it tells a totally different story. See, he's not just a frontman. He is a master of planning, organizing, and motivating his people. That's the core of management, and it's what's kept his band on top for decades.
And that really brings us to this question, right? What in the world connects these completely different leaders? Well, the answer isn't fame, and it's not fortune. It's the skill of getting things done by coordinating and motivating other people. In one word, management.
And that's the thing. It's not just a title on an org chart. It's a real craft. A set of skills that, when you do it well, can lead to some incredible success. But when it's done poorly, oh, the consequences can be absolutely disastrous. The stakes are just incredibly high.
I mean, this contrast really says it all. On one side, you've got what great management looks like, decades of success, real staying power. And on the other, you see the fallout from major management missteps, like with Uber's early, aggressive culture, which led to a damaged reputation and just chaos inside the company. Good management isn't just a nice to have, it's a make or break necessity.
Okay, so if the stakes are that high, what does good management even look like today? Well, here's the thing. The entire playbook is being rewritten. We are moving away from the manager as a controller and toward the manager as an enabler.
So let's talk about the enabler. This is the new way of thinking. Instead of controlling every single move, the modern manager's job is to create an environment where people can actually do their best work. They clear roadblocks, they coach their teams, and they build a culture where people feel supported.
Now this is so interesting because it maps out that transformation so clearly. Just look at the columns. We're shifting from being a controller to an enabler. We're moving away from just supervising a bunch of individuals, and we're moving toward leading actual dynamic teams. From an autocratic style, my way or the highway, to an empowering one. This right here is the fundamental evolution of management.
But making that big shift from controller to enabler, well, that doesn't just happen overnight. It really requires a whole new toolkit. So let's take a look at the essential skills that every single modern manager needs to master.
So these skills pretty much fall into three main buckets. First, you've got your technical skills. That's knowing the actual work that's being done. Then you have conceptual skills. That's being able to see the big picture. And finally, you have human skills. The ability to connect with, motivate, and work with people. For decades, honestly, the focus was all on the first two. But the ground is definitely shifting under our feet. But that leads to the critical question, doesn't it? If you had to really prioritize, which one of these skill sets makes the biggest difference today? What truly separates the good from the great? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. This is fascinating. Google, a company literally built on technical genius, decided to study its own top-performing managers. And look at what they found. The number one behavior of a great manager? Be a good coach. Number two, empower your team, don't micromanage. Number three, create an inclusive environment. And where are those key technical skills? All the way down at number 8. The top of the list is just dominated by human skills.
So here's the big takeaway. We have got to stop calling them soft skills. They're not optional, they're not fluffy. In today's workplace, these human-centric abilities are the critical, absolutely non-negotiable skills for success as a manager.
Okay, so we've talked about the theory, we've talked about the skills, but what does a manager's job actually look like? Hour by hour. Let's pull back the curtain on the day-to-day reality.
If you had to boil it all down, it would come down to these three words. A manager's day is not about long, quiet stretches of deep work. No way. It is a rapid-fire sequence of all kinds of different tasks, fragmented attention, and super brief interactions. And this schedule, wow, this gives you a real feel for that reality. This is an actual HR manager's morning. It jumps from a really sensitive complaint to a surprise interruption from the CEO, to a problem with a data report, to an urgent staffing issue, and that's all before 9 o'clock in the morning. It is a constant juggling act. It looks like total chaos, right? But believe it or not, there's actually a structure underneath it all. There is a way to categorize all these different activities to really make sense of the role.
Management theorist Henry Mintzberg came up with this really elegant framework. He organized all of that fragmented, chaotic work into 10 distinct roles that fall into 3 categories. So a manager is constantly switching hats. One minute they're an informational monitor, the next they're an interpersonal leader, and then they have to be a decisional disturbance handler, all in the course of a single day.
And all of this leads us to what might just be the single biggest challenge of all, the transition into the manager role itself. Because it is so much more than just a promotion.
Yet, research from Harvard professor Linda Hill found that the greatest challenge for new managers isn't learning how to do a budget or how to delegate tasks. It is a profound transformation of their personal identity. You literally have to unlearn old habits and completely rethink who you are at work.
This slide just nails that identity shift. As an individual contributor, your value comes from being a specialist, right? From getting things done through your own hard work. But as a manager, your value comes from being a generalist who gets things done through other people. You have to shift from being a doer to being a developer. And failing to make that leap, well, that's why so many new managers struggle.
Just look at the top reasons for failure. It's not a lack of technical knowledge, it's ineffective communication and poor relationships. In other words, failures in those critical human skills. In fact, in one study, get this, a staggering 81% of managers pointed to ineffective communication skills and practices as a primary reason for failure. That is an overwhelming majority.
So it all really comes down to this. The data is crystal clear. The path to being a great manager runs directly through human skills. That old playbook of command and control, it's obsolete. The only question left is which playbook are you going to use?